G'day, community, and welcome to the Jock Reynolds Supercoach podcast. I am Lekdog. It is the 11th of the 4th. We're recording this while the tribunal sits, and with me is Patch. Patch, how are you?
Lekdog, I am perfectly cromulent this fine evening. I'm just feeling fine.
Speaking of cromulent,
Yes.
shout out to today's sponsor, Patch.
Yes, indeed. This is a video pod for those listening at home. We have just stood up to reveal our new Cromulent Tees, which are beautiful and gorgeous and good friend of the show. Troy has put them together, and they're available for purchase. They're good quality. They're good fun. They're good times. I am wearing a Mr. Sparkle t-shirt. And Lekdog, you are worker and parasite extraordinaire. Beautiful.
What the hell was that? So they are good t-shirts. They are sponsoring us, Cromulent Tees. You can check them out on Facebook, Twitter, I'm assuming Instagram, at Cromulent, Cromulent Tees, Cromulent Tees, or cromulenttees.com. They have t-shirts, they have mugs, they've got the Simpsons-themed AFL mugs, which Troy made a few years ago. You can use code CREATE10 for 10% off. Now, I wasn't given permission to release that code, but Troy, hopefully it gets you some sales, 10% off. The website, cromulenttees.com. There's heaps of shirts. Not just saying this, really good quality shirts. We've actually used these shirts when we made merch before. People loved it. I still wear those shirts. And yep, there's mugs. I think there might even be a couple of footy-related t-shirts that Troy made over the weekend. So go there, cromulenttees.com. Check it out. Tell them we sent you.
A new Machito Owens shirt in anticipation of his inevitable Rising Star nominee, which might be out during the recording of this podcast. And if it is released and it's not Machito Owens, then what the hell are they doing, really?
What I love about these shirts, so I love the products and the brands within the Simpsons world, and this is that. This is the products and brands from within it's not just a picture of like Homer or Bart or whatever. It's like the Flying Hellfish logo, which is great. It reminds me of the Draft Doctors podcast I did a couple of years ago where we drafted in-universe Simpson food products, which was amazing. So anyway, cromulenttees.com. Use the code CREATE10 for 10% off at checkout. Patch, let's talk about Supercoach because there's plenty of news flying around and plenty of people are freaking out.
Yeah. I mean, I'd much rather talk about Cromulent Tees for an hour or 45 minutes because it's not looking all that rosy in the old Supercoach world, especially not in the backline. Who would have thought starting one premium and 5 rookies in the backline was a bad idea? Not me, no siree. Or one mid-pricer, but the mid-pricer is about to get suspended for 2 weeks. Yeah, it's not good. It's not bueno. Shall we start from the top? Shall we start Sam Docherty as the big news from the week? My condolences to you, a Carlton fan, on the news.
It's all right, mate. It's all right. It just means Lockie Cowan gets more game time. No, so Sam Docherty, knee out 4 to 6 weeks, has a tear in his meniscus. It's bad news for the Blues, although does answer the question who's going to come out when Sam Walsh comes back, and Matt Kennedy and Blake Acres, all these guys. But it is a concern. And for super coaches out there, it's a concern because if you started him, he's lost a lot of cash and he's going to be out for 4 to 6. So you have to trade him.
On the bright side,
it's going to be harder to trade him.
It gives you an excuse to trade him without any guilt, though. Because I know a lot of people have been sitting there going, I started him, I want to back him in, and what if he turns it around? And you now have that excuse. You have the blessing of the Supercoach gods to trade him, to get rid of him. But yes, as you said, he's lost a little bit of value. A little bit of currency is no longer there. Not ideal.
Interesting that starting a player over 600k in defence didn't work. Weird. Crazy.
No one.
With the exception, of course, of Jordan Dawson. 1 out of 5, I guess, worked. Yeah. Congratulations, Jordan Dawson.
Well done.
You're amazing.
Well done.
I just want to quickly touch on it. James Sicily has lost 44k. Jack Sinclair has lost 50k. Tom Stewart has lost 32k in missed time. And now Sam Docherty has lost 78k. So anyway, someone said that would happen. Let's talk about trading 525k Patch. Our favourite thing to do, obviously, if you can trade him to Jordan Dawson or Adam Sard or Nick Dacos or like one of these guys.
Luke Ryan.
Do it. That's fine.
Big shout out to Luke Ryan for starting the season on fire, averaging 127. Will it last? No. Will he average from 105 from here on out? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All those guys, like you can kind of trade to them. Jack Sinclair, you probably wouldn't trade to straight away. 113, averaging 101, but has a break even of 154, so he's going to lose. He's going to be even cheaper. Tom Stewart is a 50k jump. He's probably a reasonable pick, despite only averaging 92 for the year. Remember, reasons, injuries, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
But
I feel like
let's talk more fun.
there's
picks,
a lot of
Patch.
straightforward picks, a lot of sensible picks. They're probably the ones you should do. We're going to have our fun. You mentioned Adam Sard, who's a really fun option. I remember somebody in the I can't remember who. Someone in the preseason was saying Jake Lloyd would get back to a 100-point average this year. Do you remember who that was, Lake Dog? Who said that might happen?
I can't quite remember. But whoever tweeted is a
L,
bloody genius.
L Dog? No, that's too obvious. It was
That's too
Mr.
obvious.
Lek D, I think it was.
Yes.
Who said that? Yeah, he scored 120 on the weekend and he's averaging 103. That's fun.
Yeah, well, 104. Let's give him full credit. 103.8. Yes, look, 100, 102, 93, and 120. He's been good. 4 weeks. It's too early to say he'll average 100 for the year, but it's looking good. The heights of him averaging 130 plus are probably behind us, but at 520k, he's got the role, he's getting the points, and he's going to make a little bit of cash over the next couple of weeks.
Speaking of someone who might make some cash, my trade-in for the week who shattered I didn't start him because I was only more preseason. It's good for the brand. Brand has been built around Mason Redman. 2.7% of sides, 128 on the weekend, averaging 101. Has been very good for 3 weeks and been very bad for 1 week. And the very bad was the week Essendon lost. He will probably be very bad in the weeks Essendon loses. I will let you make up your own mind about how many weeks Essendon will be winning and how many weeks Essendon will be losing. But we're 3-1 and
beaten Hawthorn, Gold Coast, and GWS. Coming up, they have Melbourne, Collingwood, Geelong, Port Adelaide, Brisbane,
Richmond.
Yep. So I'll just let people make up their mind.
Yep.
I love Mason Redman. He's a value selection. However, often the reason Essendon are winning is because he's playing well, and when they lose, becomes a little bit harder.
Yes, and I suspect he'll be getting a lot of attention after being very good to start the season. Damo's pick from last week, who he didn't back in, regrettably, Nick Haynes, 400k, scored 117 on the weekend, is now averaging at 96. I was at that game on the weekend, Lek Dog, and he looks back.
Yeah, it's very much out of the mold of the Jake Lloyd thing. What once was at the top has returned. I was going to try and make a Jesus Easter joke, but I decided to bail during the middle of it. Yes, Nick Haynes getting lots of marks, which means lots of points, Patch.
Lots of points, 117 of them to be exact. He was peeling off. He was playing the
very
third
cheap
tall.
Too.
Very, very cheap. I wouldn't expect him to be any more than a D6. Like, you're bringing him in as a value option to be either your last upgrade or to kind of sit there on the pine, sit there in that last spot during the year. So if you've already got someone you reckon will sit in that role, if it's like a Will Day or someone, then he'd probably be less likely. And ditto Ed Richards seems like a fun pick, averaging 93. Likewise, isn't going to be there all year. And Trent Rivers is a really interesting one, averaging 93, 124 on the weekend. Really soft run coming up for the D's, excluding this week's very tough top 4 opponents in Essendon, with kind of Richmond, North, Gold Coast, Hawthorn, Port, and Freo. Depending on how you rate Port and Freo, that's a decent extended run of sides where he could kind of run around a little bit. One for the very bold out there listening.
Yeah. I'm probably steering clear of anyone in this 400k range myself. Like, Jacob Wadering averaging 90, Nick Haynes averaging 96, whoever you just said. And while I zoned out, while I was thinking about myself.
You would never zone out while I'm talking, Lek Dog.
God,
thinking
no,
about
I wouldn't.
The ballet.
I'd also never. I'd never talk over you and have to edit that out in the podcast every week as well. The 400k mark's weird. The one in that 450k range, though, Will Day, I really like at 101 because he's essentially playing what Warple, I thought Warple would be playing in terms of role. However, Patch,
yep,
he's currently facing a suspension of 2 weeks.
Which, look, we won't talk about whether or not it should be 2 weeks. It feels very chook-lotto at the moment, but if he's out for 2 weeks... And so if he's out for 2 weeks, you obviously don't trade him in. If you've got him already, be it you started him or you've just traded into him, do you hold for 2
I think
weeks?
he's going to miss 1 week no matter what. So that's a hold. And normally 2 weeks is a hold.
All right, what if...
Break even of 14, 450k, averaging 101. If he scores 101 next week, when he returns, he's going to jump up another 40k up to 500k in price. Like, it's a risk to trade him.
It is. We'll talk about rookies being rested later, because there's a bit of carnage in the back line where it could potentially be looming that maybe Reuben Ginbey gets rested. But let's burn that bridge in a little bit when we talk about rookies, because they're all over the field. There's another big injury from the week where a lot of people jumped from Darcy Cameron to the trusty, solid, reliable Toby Nankervis, who doesn't miss games and has been pumping out good scores. And what did he do on the weekend, Lekdog? What did he do?
Syndesmosis.
Yay!
The worst word in fantasy footy.
So I would like to apologise to anyone I suggested bring him in. He was a good pick. I thought he was a good pick. I didn't think he'd get injured. It's hard to predict, but he still pumped up the 97 for those that bought him in. So at least there was a little bit of points. It wasn't like a max score 0, but goodness me, not ideal.
No. And you could have done what I did, and instead of going Tim English, I'm going to go Riley O'Brien and watch him get dominated all week. So, it could be worse. You could have done that. At least Nank. I think Nank scored, didn't he?
Yeah, Nank scored 97.
Great. Love it.
So went up in cash.
Shout out to Ross Lyon, by the way. Rowan Marshall scored 1 point less, 96. He was on 96 essentially at 3/4 time. Mm-hmm. So thanks, Ross.
A lot of people captained him after Jared Witts missed the weekend with calf tightness or calf soreness or whatever it was, the little niggle that popped him out of the side, if you will, leaving Ned Moyle to make his debut. We thought Roma would go nuts. He did. And then Ross was like, nah, we'll take you off. So Witts didn't play. Assuming Witts is back this week, you obviously hold him. Asafa Radaglia played well for people that didn't have a donut on the bench in their ruck line. So
miraculous.
So points to them.
88 points. Gee whiz.
Just what the doctor ordered. So if you've got Nank Lekdog, at risk of repeating what we were speaking about last week, if you got the cash, you probably go up. If you don't have the cash, look at going sideways to Grundy.
Tim English. Yes. Now, the only downside with Grundy, by the way, got told he was a bad pick, even though he pumped out a 144. Understand the reasons for him being a bad pick. Max Gorn, in the latest injury report, listed as 1 to 2 weeks.
1 to 2 weeks. Is that it?
There's some risk there, particularly if we've missed the 144 and the 31k price rise already. However, Brody Grundy is very affordable. Big question marks over the return of Max Gorn and what it does. Yeah, I actually think Brody Grundy's not going to be scoring 140s, but I actually still think he's going to score fine. I think he's going to be scoring 100-ish when Gorn returns.
Interesting. I think obviously for the next few weeks he loves playing Essendon, often beats up with big scores against Essendon. They've got him this week. I'm intrigued as to what he does when he gets back, but if I'm in that position, I'm probably going to the man that a lot of people traded out in Sean Darcy. He's that tiny bit cheaper.
I'm with you.
Tiny bit cheaper, averaging the 98, but he's had 138 or something the week before, coming 41. Off a 125. He's 96, aside from that one game against North where he scored 41 and was putrid, he's been what you wanted. He's been doing the thing. He's still getting all the centre bounces, and Luke Jackson just kind of running around up forward and chopping out a tiny bit, but no more than Rory Lobb was. I think he's a fine pick. I think he's good.
Yeah, look, I'm the same. I didn't totally understand the trade out. I can't remember if I had him in one of the cheat sheets or not. I cannot remember, but I never really understood the trade out panic. I know he had the 41 and the 96, and it's easy to say in hindsight, but yeah, there's not really been question marks over his role. So I think he's a good selection, and I think obviously the other one, Jared Witts, if he plays, which it sounds like he will, is a great selection as well. If you've got the cash to go up, I'd say avoid everyone. I'd say pick any of these guys except Riley O'Brien because he's the one in my team, and clearly he's bad.
Obviously. Evidently. Luke Jackson, an interesting one, scored 98 and 107 in his last two after a pretty average start to the season with 61 and 57. I wouldn't go there, but hey, he's an option. He's probably closer to averaging this than he is to averaging what he did in the first 2 weeks, but I don't know. Just thought I'd mention him. Got Gold Coast this week, so that could be interesting if Witts is still out.
Well, I've got Bulldogs fans telling me Jordan Sweet's going to return to the side to free up Tim English a bit, which I actually think would be even better for his scoring, if I'm being honest. I don't think he even needs to be at the ruck to score well. He's so freaking good.
I mean,
The hit-outs obviously help,
Bevo
but
could play him
his
on the
goals
wing.
and marks. I mean, yeah, he plays everyone else on the wing, by the way. So they're the main ones. They're the main ones we need to address, was the ruck and the defence. Was there any big midfield injuries? I don't believe there was.
No, I don't think so.
I guess we just got to watch this Will Day thing. I know for sure I'm going to be trading him in when he's available. So that's interesting. And another one that I want to watch, Patch, who only played sort of like half a game of footy, Elliot Yeo played and was subbed out, as was the plan. Just want to watch him. Just want to watch him. I'm also going to try and potentially find a way to get Tom Stewart into my team this week at 570k. So that's sort of where my mind's at. I'm looking for value still, value relative to output. Yeah, Elliot Yeo's one I'm going to watch because he might be 350k and real cheap, and he could be good the next 2
Had
weeks. Anyway,
57 on the weekend, so certainly didn't set it alight, but also had to play basically full back. So that was not a fun experience for him, I don't think. Rookies.
I've seen a few people trading in Mitch Duncan, by the way, 486k defender, 116 on his return, which is interesting. That's my simple note. It's interesting, and I'll wait a week to see how he goes.
Yeah,
again.
116 on the weekend. Yeah, having the first 2 week sample size of Hawthorn and then West Coast probably doesn't help, but certainly one to keep an eye on. That's for sure.
Let's talk, Patch, as you were alluding to, rookies, but I actually want to go to trade out rookies first before we look at rookies to buy.
Right.
So I think it's an interesting discussion. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to do it. So I'm just pulling up I'm going to go to about 300k players. I'm going to sort by most traded out this week, and we're just going to go through them because there's some interesting discussions. Like Liam Jones, right? Bad. On the weekend. In my team, hasn't done the thing. Like, I mean, we didn't really think he'd do the thing, but hasn't done the thing. But break even is 36.
What's he been averaging?
Break even. If you include his 5 in round 1, 48.
Excellent.
So his break even has not quite reached his average, but like a 45 gets you very little cash, and also a 45's really bad. His high score for the season is 76. In the preseason, he obviously had that ton. I have no issues with trading him, but it's an interesting discussion. Where do we start to cull these guys? Because it feels like the value of the rookies is rising way slower than the value of premiums is decreasing. So we need to make calls on guys before they're fully fattened to try and bridge that gap. So the most traded out guys this week: Liam Jones, Cam McKenzie, Matthias Philippou, Alwyn Davey, Ben King, Finn Callahan, Josh Goda, who didn't play, Reuben Ginbey. All these guys have very, very achievable break-evens still. And in the case of Alwyn Davey, a negative break-even.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, we kind of alluded to it at the top of the show, but there's a lot of rumors, a lot of discussion about some of these players being rested. Like Reuben Ginbey was being flagged by Adam Simpson as someone who looked tired on the weekend, could probably do with a spell, which be it a week off, a week in the waffle, a week as the sub, which I suspect a lot of clubs will manage people doing. Cam McKenzie's had his role thrown around a little bit. He's had a lot of CBAs in round 1, and that steadily decreased to, I think, at least halfway through the game on Monday, it was 0 CBAs. I don't know if he picked up any after that. A little bit of concern there about that role, and he also, only 4 rounds, but could well have a spell too. It's a little bit concerning about whether or not they will be able to continue to do the thing long term. I don't.
Cam McKenzie, it looks like he attended one CBA in round 4.
There we go. It's an area of concern. It's an area of concern, and then we've got a few guys coming through that could be cash grabs, be it basement bargment rookies, as I stumble over myself, bargain basement rookies, or if it's mid prices that have absurdly low break evens. And we all know that they work 100% of the time and could never, ever blow up like Joel Amadi did on the weekend.
Yeah, Joel Amadi, don't want to harbour on that too much because I know you're very sensitive about him, but an issue that his break even is now 56 and that his scoring has steadily declined. And if you look at it as a pattern, he's going to score negative 40 this week, which is not good for your Supercoach
No,
scoring
that will not hit his
or
break
his
even.
Supercoach price. By the way, we should shout out your boy Paddy McCartan. Just horrible.
Just awful.
Horrible. Just while I'm thinking about him.
Poor guy.
Yeah, so Amadi Party is one where it's like people traded him, got a little bit of cash, and now they're freaking out and they should trade him out. And I think they probably should. I think it's a weird one, right? Cam McKenzie, role being thrown around, scoring has declined, break even is still 18. You hold him, he's going to generate cash. He's not going to score less than 18, you'd think, unless he's the sub or whatever. But Joel Amadi, his break even is 56, and I'm not confident that he's even going to hit that. I'm not even confident that he'll remain in Sydney's team for that long. So he's one you could trade. So it's almost a case-by-case basis. But where do we draw the line, Patch? Is it standard old cash cow rules when their break-even hits their average, we trade them? Or do we have to go early on some of these guys because they are all being really slow burners? I don't know. What do you think?
I think the answer is annoyingly a case-by-case basis of, there's not really... who are you looking to trade out? Is there a rookie you could trade them to? Is there a premium you really want? If it's, your Tom Stewarts, or, you really want Tim English and you're trying to trade out Docherty or Nank and you just need to find the cash from somewhere. I think it's maybe okay to look at.
I think getting in a primo, you can pretty much do whatever you want.
Yeah, I think... I'd certainly prefer to hold guys like Ginbey or McKenzie or Davey or any of these guys that are still going to generate cash. You look at your Joel Amadis who are making less cash now that, I was expecting a 60, bracing for kind of a 50, was not expecting the 20 odd we got on the weekend, which is caved in his cash generation. And then there's the risk that even though, you look at someone like Cozzy Pickett who has a brilliant run coming up, there's every chance he drops a 30 because he's a small forward, and sometimes they do that. And as much as I'm really interested in him as a cash generation tool, he's not someone I feel overly comfortable bringing in this week. So I'd be probably, as you said, prioritizing premiums, prioritizing guys that you think are going to be there by the end of the season, because there's no one really that's jumping out at me as a mid-price option that's going to make us a lot of cash really quickly. And I have just been very burned by Amadi, in that maybe it's not the best move. Even like a Max Michelini who scored 103 on the weekend, break even negative 45, but he's 240k. He might score 16 on the weekend and suddenly his value plummets. It's just, you can move these guys on, but I think there's merit in just kind of holding and assessing for another couple of weeks, just as they continue to fatten.
Well, let's go through a few that we can move on. So James Warple break even is now 80. I jumped off him last week. He scored a 75. So he actually did gain 10k this week. But I reckon, see, the hard thing with James Warple, as I'm talking through it, if Will Day is suspended for 2 weeks, I think James Warple goes back to get scoring 100 for 2 weeks.
Yep.
That's a tough one. But I'm very comfortable jumping off James Warple and going to a premium this week. Break even is higher than his average. Asterisk, could double ton or ton over the next 2 weeks if Will Day's not playing. But he's one I'm pretty comfortable moving on. As I scroll through this list of guys, geez, there's a lot of nothing, isn't there? There's a lot of nothing.
There are a bunch of guys.
Sam Flanders, owners. They should have moved him last week. You've got a list in front of you. Why don't you name some while I pull some up?
Well, I was looking at the guys to potentially bring in, but looking towards the guys that you need to move out if I scroll past all of the guys that haven't played very quickly.
Yes, I should be filtering guys who haven't played. That's smart.
But
like a Ben King, right? Ben King is absolutely a trade. You just cut your losses and you trade him down. I had him on the bench. I think he scored 20. It didn't work. The theory that he could come out and potentially score a ton because, who else is going to kick goals for them didn't work. At some stage, he's going to do that this year, but hey, I'm happy to cut bait on him and just go down to a rookie. And then all these other guys, yeah, we talked about your Mackenzies and your Ginbeys and whatnot. I want to hold them, even if they rested for a week. I want to hold them because they're going to keep making cash, and they've shown us that they can score. It's a really, really difficult.
And
I just want the rookies to all be Sheasel.
why can't they all just be Sheasel? Why can't they be like, their brother? Why are they the older, balder, fatter son of the rookies? It's very, very upsetting. I think the other side of the equation is you look at the guys that you'd be bringing in, where if you're trading out, you're trading out Ginbey out of your midfield, and you're bringing someone up from the forward line to bring in like a Jacob.
What about like a Finn Callahan or someone?
Yeah,
he's like, if he's a bit meh, isn't he? 260k breaking 48.
He's quite meh, but
he's a bit meh.
But like in terms of who you're bringing in to replace him, you've got Jacob Van Rooyen on the bubble, -71 break even, but he's a key forward. Melbourne have a decent run, so maybe he, I think he's a good trade in. But outside of that, you don't have a lot on the bubble. You've got Tyler Brockman at Hawthorn, small forward playing for Hawthorn, scored 25 on the weekend, could average 25. You've got Samson Ryan, Nankervis is out for a little while. I don't know if he plays as the number one ruck. Soldo's 2 weeks away. They're going to have to play him with Lynch and Nankervis out. Does he score? Probably not. Probably not a lot. A lot of these guys that are...
Judson Clark, I don't even know who that is, but he scored 80 and his break-even is -26, but elevated price point. Don't really want to jump on.
Yeah, there's just not a lot there that is enticing me to jump on and to really invest to bring in someone to make us cash. And I think in that case you're better off, even if someone like Ginbey is dropped but then comes in as the sub and comes on at the last quarter and scores 20. I think I'd rather a 20 on my bench and Ginbey then coming back the next week and averaging 70 than going to like Tyler Young in the back line, who's 142k, scored 61 on the weekend, has good job security, -31 break even. I'm not hugely excited by that.
No, I'm with you. I think sometimes, and it's hard because you want to be aggressive, particularly if your rank's slipping. I look at my rank and I don't really know why I scored badly this week. I can't really piece it together, but I did. I scored badly. Everyone kind of scored okay, which I guess is an issue. But it's really hard for me not to go, I just got to triple trade my way out of this. But there's not a lot for me to go to. Like, I can't go to Ned Moyle. He's never going to play again. Dylan Williams debuted for Port, but I feel like they're going to be flaky on him. There's just... yeah, it's like Van Rooyen or bust, basically.
Yeah, and I certainly, with Melbourne's run, I'd be advocating for people to bring Van Rooyen in if you can do it from, from one of these guys we talked about that kind of aren't doing it for us. Then, yeah, but I also don't think it's, a massive pain if you miss Jacob Van Rooyen.
Yeah, it's I'm with you. He's probably better than a 0, and he's better than someone who's Ben King, but that's about it. Yep. Like, Toby McLean, he's 178k. He should come back in that team. He had about 47 disposals on the weekend, but again, I'm not super comfortable bringing a guy in that's already been the sub and already been dropped.
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't.
It's not a great week for trading, despite the fact that there is value in the premium. So I guess where we've landed after this conversation, my standpoint, Patch, is if you can afford to bring in a premium for some of your rookies, I think you do it. But they can still generate cash, and it's only like the super value guys I'm after, or the guys who I think are going to be out of reach the following week. Like, Tim English, if you don't get him this week, he's going to be like 700k in a week. He's going to be really hard to get to. Tom Stewart is going to be really hard to get to if you don't get him this week, because he's probably going to jump up another 20, 30k in price. So those guys, but I'm kind of a wait and see this week for the most part.
And the benefit is that if we go bang bang next week, we've got positional changes. We've got Harry Sheasel as a defender. We've got Josh Bruce, if you've got him as a defender. We've got Nick Dacos potentially mid eligible. We've got guys that, we've got more swing sets that open up. We've got more to play with next week as guys become available in different spots on the ground. So I think there's merit in just kind of just holding, just treading water for a week. And I know it hurts. I know that your rank might be slipping, but I think like my rank's just kind of all over the place, doesn't know what it's doing. I think there's value in just trying to settle down this week. But that said,
It's not.
Yes, Slick Dog.
It's not a bad point. It's not a bad point, and the fact that DPPs are coming next week is an interesting one. So, I mean, does that actually change anything? Does it, like, if you're a Zeeble owner and you go, oh, I've got Liam Jones, he's been pretty shit. I could go up to like I don't know, an Ollie Florent or a Will Day or something, assuming Will Day plays. You're better off just waiting a week, as you've said. Swing Zeeble down into defense and then grab like a forward or something that we think are going to be harder to get. It's a very interesting point you've made, and I don't know what the answer is, but it's an interesting point.
Yeah, I'd like, you look at the Jones example. Jones isn't going to, he's not going to make a lot of money. He's also probably not going to lose a lot of money because there's not a lot to lose unless he goes down for a 5 after a head knock or something. Like, I think it's you can just tread water if you want this week, and I think that's fine. As much as you've got someone that's injured, you got to trade them. I don't think you'd need to be hitting the panic buttons. But that said,
it's a good thought as well, right? We started the podcast talking about how the defense is a bit of a worry with Day and Docherty and Ginbey and stuff. But if you can get through this week, a lot of people have Jack Zeeble. Pretty much everyone has Harry Sheasel. That you're going to move 2 guys one averaging 99 and one averaging 115 straight into your defense next week if you want. And then you swing all your mid forwards forward, and then you're just targeting mids. Like, while this week is a rough looking week, next week you might finish your defense next week with the swing set of 2 players.
Yep. There's merit sitting around. If you're facing with a donut this week, and there's the chance that we may have a savior right in, and in that case, I'd be looking to potentially go Liam Jones to Lake Dog, the man, the myth, the legend. They said he didn't exist, but Will Gould.
And explain to everyone why Will Gould will be an option, because it's not a fun reason, but it is a reason.
No, Paddy McCartan and Tom McCartan both had concussions on the weekend, which awful for both of them, but Paddy especially. Thoughts going out to him with his history of it and how innocuous the knock was that sent him off. Lewis Melican is apparently injured, who is the Tom McCartan backup, and they don't really have anyone else. Dane Rampy is still there, still averaging 100 apparently, but beyond that, Aaron Francis and Will Gould are
there we go. The disrespect on Aaron Francis's name from you. A toxic ex-Essendon supporter, ex-fan of this man.
Well, look, I think Francis comes in from McCartan. I think that's a pretty like-for-like swap. Francis is good. He plays an intercepting role. McCartan is good, plays an intercepting role. Tom McCartan is the more lockdown. I think they do need someone that can stand in and stand next to someone and just punch the ball away. And Will Gould, maybe not as tall, but is that man. Is that myth? Is that legend?
It's going to be great. I hope he does get named. God, we just want to pick him. We just want the chance to pick him.
We just want him. God, it'd be good. And him debuting in Adelaide would be just something really nice. Being from Adelaide, spent, knocked back offers to go back there, tore up the Sandful in his draft year. God, it'd be a feel-good story, really.
It'd be fantastic. And I just want to shout out as well, while we're talking about fantastic things, Luke Cowan is probably a slight beneficiary in terms of job security out of the Sam Docherty news. So if you're an owner, I know a few people disappointed with his 50s that he's providing, but he's probably not one to trade. Just looking through the people percentages of trading out, he's probably one we want to hold just because he's alive.
And there's every chance he does similar to what Asava did, similar to what Fergus Green did, and pump out a 70 or an 80, and that's enough to get him to 250, 300k. Really, like that's Asava getting there, barring a 20 odd. That's all it takes for some of them. So there's merit in the patience.
Yep. I reckon we've just about exhausted all of our conversation points, Patch. I reckon we've nailed it. It's going to be an interesting week. It's Thursday footy again, but it's basically footy 24/7, all from South Australia. It's like one game into another, into another, into another. So teams are going to be getting named. Emergencies, laid outs, laid ins are going to be getting named for the next team halfway through, like on the Friday, like halfway through that first game. So it's basically we're being asked to be switched on 24/7, and you need to be, otherwise you'll have a Jared Witt 0.
I hate that. I just wish it was a hard lockout. But anyway, that's not the world we live in.
Well, you know the solution to that, Patch.
Storm the Herald Sun offices. Yes, Leckdog, I know. I'll get my pitchfork.
Yes, we are. I'd like to say this, that Cromulent Tees is entirely endorsing us to storm the Herald Sun offices.
Cromulent Tees is part of the mob.
Get out there. Get your Cromulent Tees from cromulenttees.com. We'll storm the Capitol. We'll take the Herald Sun buildings, and we will capture Tim Mitchell until he changes the lockout rules. Use code CREATE10 for 10% off. Patch, it's been a pleasure inciting. What is it? What is it we're inciting? Mostly just violence.
Mob violence, yeah.
Mob violence. It's been a pleasure inciting mob violence with you and talking about the Blues and the Supercoaches and the Essendons.
Yes, and I assume other football clubs were included, but I've now forgotten that they all exist.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. It's been a pleasure occupying the top rungs of the ladder with you for the early bits. I will see you in a couple of years when Essendon slowly returns up to that end of the ladder, because we'll be dropping off very quickly. But until then, go Dons.
Go Blues. And remember to watch the video version of this on YouTube. Just search Jock Reynolds.